Ready?
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on.
We're broadcasting live to the YouTube world.
Two things. Hold on.
Nobody's watching. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Go.
You ready?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So please introduce yourself.
My name is Clay Crocker. I'm a trainer for Boots to Business. I run the 2-day course, mostly in Asia and in Europe.
All right. So first of all, what's the difference between the 2-day course and the online 8-week program?
Okay, so this is Operation Boots to Business. They break it up into three parts. The first part is sort of underutilized. I feel like the first part is them watching a video, sort of describing the program, and then through some prompts and through some sample business concepts, thinking of their business idea that they want to bring to the 2-day workshop. Okay, the 2-day workshop is the next phase. That is, as it sounds, 2 days of going through 8 different modules. And I'm one of the instructors. There's always 2 instructors facilitating it, and it's sort of the fire hose approach to this kind of instruction. And then that leads into the 8-week online course, which is, so I said 8 modules for the 2-day course. The 8 weeks, then that is essentially them going a lot deeper on each of the modules. Okay, so module 1 is sort of week 1. That's introduction to entrepreneurship and possible avenues to go down, like franchising or like new venture creation and so on.
All right. So why do you think they chose to make the 8-week program online instead of an in-person project like the 2-day program is?
Yes, that part's pretty simple. So the people eligible for this program are transitioning, retiring, or separating out. Spouses are also can do it, but the idea is that they'll be gone by the time they can. So this is sort of a farewell opportunity for them, like the other parts of the TAPS program. But so the point, long story short, they wouldn't be there to do. We couldn't do it in person. It'd
Okay,
be
how about the
expensive.
instructors? What do the instructors have to do with it being online?
Okay, yeah. So it's 2 separate entities. Most of the instructors do. Some instructors have only done the 8-week online course. Others, like me, to this point, have actually only done the 2-day course. But some of them have done both. It's fairly basic stuff. So the people that have gotten to do one or the other can handle it in terms of content. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So what forms of technology are used in the online program that they do? What do they utilize?
You're freezing up.
Did you hear that?
No.
Okay. So what forms of technology are being used currently in the 8-week program?
All right. So if you're familiar with Coursera, or I would imagine a lot of the other online platforms, it's very similar to that in that they offer, there's office hours with the instructor, and there are the video, tend to be 15 or so minute video tutorials on there as well. So that's about the extent of it, as far as I know.
Okay. So are they using any kind of discussion boards or some kind of online, kind of like a meetup type thing where they're talking to each other?
To this point, they aren't, which is surprising.
Okay. So do you think Are they using technology effectively then in this 8-week program, or do you think that they could use it better?
They could definitely use it better. I think I've watched some of the video tutorials. They're okay. Equal, on the same level as those Coursera courses. Uh, I think, like your last question, they need to make it more collaborative. Actually, find a way to use technology to help the sort of peer learning and for them to motivate each other and whatever else.
Right. And so what about the content? Are they focusing on the right style of content and the right information that they're giving to the people right now?
Some of it is good. I think overall, I have to say yes or no. I'm going to say no. I think it is too academic at this point. So it's the 8-week program. Essentially, when you come out of there, you're not going to have any diploma that really matters. You'll get a certificate of completion from Syracuse University, the IVMF program. But what we like to say is you'll come out with a fairly tight business plan. Okay, after the 8 weeks, you should, if you do your work. Uh, you know, they got from my vantage point, they could still do that. They could still come out with a pretty good business plan and do a whole lot more during the 8 weeks. So I think it should be more getting out there in the community. The assignments, whereas there's a lot of reading, and a lot of market research, but I feel like it should be more hands-on. It should be more, they should find a way to make it more collaborative. And the biggest thing I would say is that it needs to. There's a good book out there, The Startup of You. Okay, that the writer of it's the creator of LinkedIn. They need to make it more about self-marketing, about sort of transforming yourself into a personal startup, as opposed to having a business idea and writing a conventional business plan. Because in a lot of cases, that's sort of defunct at this point. That whole concept is sort of out of date, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, as of now, would you say that you have any competitors, or what kinds of programs would be competitors to what Boots to Business does?
Okay, so it's kind of a tricky question about competitors. There's the Kauffman Foundation is a really based in Kansas City, really deep-pocketed organization that puts on programs like this. They have one that's based in Wisconsin right now. It's hard to find much of what they actually do, but it looks very similar to what we're doing. Instead of 2 days for the face-to-face, it's 3 days, and they actually have a more like performance-based finale at the end of that 3 days, which personally I think would be a good thing for us. Inc. 500 does a lot of they do a lot of these competitions as well for business plans. Citibank puts on a big business plan competition. Those would be competitors, I think, in the sense that for us to sustain, we're going to need for the Boost to Business to sustain to keep its grant money. They're going to have to defend the product in front of Congress this coming April. So there's one more in Seattle. There's a company putting on a similar type of program aimed at veterans, the same way Boots to Business and the Kauffman Foundation is.
So what about competitors within the veteran community, like that are directly working with veterans, the same way Boots to Business is with doing sessions on the military bases and more in an official setting?
Right, that's a good point, in that it's sort of a tricky area because we have our brand and we're the entrepreneurship track of the of the TAPS, which is Transition Assistance Program for service members. There's a resume writing one. There's how do you finance? There's sort of like a parenthood one. There's a lot of different ones. So that's my idea about turning it more into or focusing more on the self-marketing aspect. With LinkedIn in particular. That does sort of go off-brand in the sense that that's a little more like resume writing. But one of the point of transition directors had a good comment to me a few weeks ago. He said the resume writing workshop was out of date before they even wrote it. Okay, so it's not a good product, but there is that sense that we need to stick to exactly what we do, even if that may not be the most effective, because that's our brand.
Yeah. So, as far as success rate, what do you think are the estimated percentage of students that go through the program that actually complete it, that are actually in this to start a business and are probably implementing what they're learning?
Yeah, so that is the metric that they're going to have to present to Congress, as far as the more kind of qualitative areas. But the metric is what percentage of the people who start the 8-week, actually finish it. So as far as the people that go through the 2-day program, there I'd say it's about 75 or 80% that actually join the 8-week program. Okay, but for the 8-week, the ones who finish it right now is hovering at about 40 or 50%. Okay, that's where it is.
All right. So how do you think we can get those numbers up if they really want to prove to Congress that this is good and it's doing good for the community? What do you think has to happen to get, especially the 8-week program, up to more like that 70 or 80% of completion rate?
Yeah, I think they've started doing it. There's more sort of transparency between so certain professors or instructors of the 8-week course are really getting after it, sort of going the extra mile to make develop a personal relationship with their students, even if there is 50 or 60. Those they have higher rates. Okay, they're at 50 or 60%, while the ones who are just sort of maybe doing the bare minimum or just kind of going through the motions, they're at about 20 or 30. So I think they are on the right track in sort of incentivizing.
Yeah, the better professors and some of the lower professors.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's more to do with just putting the time in to sort of to make the service members know that you really care about them, and that and honestly, even more than that is just it's the facilitators that will hold their feet to the fire, right? That as opposed to the ones who are just may check out week 3 or week 4.
Right. So as you said, this program needs to be defended in front of Congress. So that's coming up pretty soon. So what do you think needs to happen for it to continue to get funding and for it to continue to grow and make the changes that need to happen?
Honestly, I think there needs to be a more kind of a paradigm shift. All right, the two sort of big bottlenecks maybe with this operation is one is it's still it's the SBA, the Small Business Association, and it's all these other military institutions. They're not businesses. Okay, so you've got the bureaucracy that you hear about. I hadn't experienced it firsthand until I started working there 4 or 5 months ago, and it's a real thing. You just can't. It's really hard to get anything done, and giving your ideas, there's not really it's hard to get them heard. The second thing is that the same way that Google is prides itself on being a company for engineers, by engineers, of engineers, entrepreneurs are not. They may be creative, but they're not creative as with educational technology. They're creative in doing their own thing, right? So the issue that I think the problem there is that you've got these impressive people who even may be Ivy League professors at Cornell or wherever or Syracuse, but they're not. The fact that they're great entrepreneurs does not mean that they have a passion for creating curriculum that actually works, and especially curriculum that works in 2014. Okay, so to answer your question, that's a long way. There needs to be somebody, and they need to listen. Somebody needs to step up and say, "Look, here's the way to overhaul the curriculum in a much more modern, up-to-date way, not the way entrepreneurism was done 20 years ago, the way it is now."
Right. So in reality, do you think that these changes are going to happen, or do you think it's just something that we can all be hopeful for, but really isn't going to happen?
I think it could go either way. I think it's going to take sort of somebody really, being entrepreneurial, in pitching it and really sort of, treating it like a passion, sort of, and a huge part of it is, what we preach to them. Listen to your customers. Always listen to your customers. We have, and the feedback is it's all good, and it's usually the high marks, but it's the expectations may not be that high because what they're used to in terms of those types of programs, they set the bar pretty low. But recently, as it's sort of been picking up steam, we've been getting the more feedback of make it more interactive, make it more gamified, find ways to sort of really utilize the time as best you can, and I think. For that to happen, it's going to take somebody's going to have to feel the pressure, and then somebody, and that's somebody high up, and then somebody who actually knows it, who has a better sense of how to deliver this type of program curriculum-wise, needs to step up with kind of the big idea of, okay, how do we actually overhaul it now that we're now that we're receptive to the idea that it needs to be overhauled.
Right. Okay, well, thanks a lot for letting us hear your thoughts, and we look forward to seeing what Boots to Business has in store for the future.
You're very welcome.